Thank you all so much again for being with us for our very first annual reporting guidance seminar for 2023. Everything that we're going to be going over today is going to be for the 2022 reporting period. If at any time you ever need anything or have any questions or your tutorial on any of this information, always feel free to reach out to myself, Christina Gauthier, and Natalie Padilla, and we will definitely get you squared away. As a reminder, today's seminar, with all of our recorded seminars, are going to be available on our PERA website under our video library, as well as the Volunteer Firefighter Retirement webpage. We also have a YouTube channel, so you can find all of our PERA recorded videos or just educational videos in general on our YouTube channel. So we definitely encourage you all to join us there to participate or just learn more about PERA or the Volunteer Firefighter Retirement Program. In today's video, you're going to learn a little bit more about how we serve you all with the Volunteer Firefighter Retirement Act. You're also going to hear more information about the annual reporting process. And so we're going to go over this as well with all of the requirements to get you all squared away. And then we're also just going to share some tips and some things to remember going forward that we usually get on an annual basis that we think that you might find helpful as well. So if you didn't know, the New Mexico Volunteer Firefighter Retirement Act was established in 1983. And ideally, it is the State Fire Marshal's Office who oversees all of the funding and the program. And PERA just helps administer the program as far as the reporting process, getting you all service credit, and then also getting you into the retirement phase of your volunteer firefighter career. So a lot of the times you come to us for questions, and unfortunately, we have no jurisdiction over some of that information. So we usually reach out to the State Fire Marshal's Office where we have a good relationship with Randy Varela and his team. So if there's ever a question that we can't answer, we'll definitely go to Randy and his team for some guidance. We're going to go a little bit into playing within the Volunteer Firefighter Retirement Program. So some of you, we hear a lot, you're an active member, so you may be an active employee under PERA with the county entity, municipal entity, state entity, etc. So you might be familiar with PERA, but for those of you who are not, it is a 401(k) qualified government plan, and we are governed by the New Mexico Public Employees Retirement Act. So besides our day job of help with the Volunteer Firefighter Retirement Program, we also provide resources to almost 47,000 active members and over 44,000 retirees and beneficiaries. So we always ask you to be patient if we don't get back to you within a day, as we have our other daily job and our other responsibilities that we have to adhere to. So some of the things that we do and we, the Outreach Bureau, as far as the Volunteer Firefighter Retirement Program, it is our responsibility to educate all of you. So whether you are a department chief or you're just a regular volunteer firefighter or you're a secretary, it is our job to make sure that you are educated and you're comfortable in knowing more about the Volunteer Firefighter Retirement Program. We also receive, correct, and process any annual reports that come from you all. And keep in mind that we have over 360 volunteer firefighter departments throughout the state of New Mexico. So you'll often come to us if you have a suspended report or if you just need more guidance. So we are definitely here to serve all of the over 360 departments. One popular thing that we usually get as far as the Volunteer Firefighter Retirement Program is we help maintain and adjust service credit records. So we're going to go into detail more about that throughout the seminar. But unfortunately, we have thousands of members out there who are missing years upon years of service credit. So we usually conduct an audit of your account. We also look at the Volunteer Firefighter Department account. And we usually, hopefully, if everything pans out, usually we can adjust Sometimes we can't adjust, and that's just because of statutory obligations, but we can definitely provide you with an audit if you're ever missing any service credit records. We also help process pensions for VF members, so it's not necessarily the outreach team that processes these applications for VF pensions. It is our member services division, our retirements division that helps in this step of the process, but they'll usually reach out to us in outreach if they ever have any questions. So we're going to look and take a deep dive into the VF annual reporting process. So for those of you who may be new, and maybe those of you who are just here for a refresher, as you may know, because of VF statutes, you are required as a department to submit an annual report in a hard copy as well as an electronic copy format. These reports do have to be submitted on or before March 31st of each year. So like I mentioned at the beginning of today's seminar, what we're going over today is for the 2022 Volunteer Firefighter Reporting process. So you just want to try to keep that in mind. The reporting process does open January 1st. So it did open this year in 2023, and it'll go all the way up to March 31st of 2023. And again, for the 2022 reporting process. So let's take a look on some kits and just resources for all of you, especially for those who are new to the VF reporting process. So Christina, my colleague, did a wonderful job of putting together our VF annual reporting guide. We usually update this every reporting period, and there wasn't actually any updates from last year's reporting guide. But this is kind of just the holy grail of the hard copy and electronic reporting process. Christina has included snapshots, clips that will guide you step by step through each process, whether it's through the hard copy process or the electronic reporting process. So we're going to actually show you where this is housed at the end of today's seminar, just so that way you're familiar where you can find it. And literally this will guide you step by step through both processes. But for today, right now, we're going to go over the hard copy process into the annual reporting process. So the very first form that we're going to go over is the VF annual reporting form. If we go into detail, it's pretty self-explanatory, easy information that you should all have. Section 1 of this form is just us getting current contact information. So we're going to want your VFD number, and if you're not too sure what your 5-digit number is, this is information we can provide you with. We're going to want to know your department name, your mailing address, as well as who the chief is. And then we're also going to want to know an alternate contact, just so that when we can't get a hold of the chief, then we have someone that we can contact. We are very aware that there is a lot of turnover throughout departments, and so we just want to make sure that we're contacting the correct person. So if there is ever a change, if you can reach out to us and let us know about the changes, we would definitely appreciate that. In section 2, we're going to know who was either active and not active within your department for 2022. A lot of the times we get people where they ask, this member was here for a week, and they weren't necessarily they're not going to receive service credit. It doesn't matter, because we want what reflects 100% of your roster for that year. So even if someone showed up for a day, even for 6 months, etc., you're still going to want them reflected on the report, and we're going to kind of talk about why throughout today's seminar. So we're going to want to know in that first section, who were your new VF members reported in 2022? So again, these are people who have never been active with the department. It's their first year. You'll want to include the number of those individuals on this section. In the second part of this section, we're going to want to know who are your current or returning non-retired VF members for 2022. So these are people who have been active for more than a year with your department, and they're returning and they are not retired. Today, I came across an interesting situation where a department thought that one of their members was retired. And it could have been that, they just thought, they've been here for so many years that they were a retired member, and in fact, they weren't. So for your retired members, so these are your members who are receiving a benefit from PERA, but who are still continuing to volunteer with your department. So they are retired members. We are going to want to know those numbers of individuals in this section as well. It's going to require a little bit of math, but I promise it's not going to make you jump off the edge with mathematics. So from all of the totals for your new members, current and retired members, we're just going to want you to calculate the total of VF members reported in 2022. So again, this has to reflect 100% of your members on your roster. The next section, section 3, this we are going to require that the chief gets this section notarized. We will actually not accept the form if it is missing any signatures. So that includes the chief signature as well as the notary signature in there. Again, there are different examples we can share with you as to why this would be a red flag for us. So we're just asking you ahead of time, don't forget to get this signed by your chief as well as the notary. The next section is section 4, and this is going to require a signature from your municipal mayor or a chair of a county commission. So they do have to sign and date it. Please keep in mind that oftentimes we hear from departments that they weren't able to get on the agenda last minute to get a mayor signature. So we're telling you ahead of time so that way you have plenty of time to get with the county or the municipal entity to be able to obtain the signature from the mayor or the chair of the county commission ahead of time. I know that sometimes it requires you to get on an agenda to get their signature. So just try to make sure to remember doing that before March 31st of 2023. Some important things to remember for this particular form. We do not accept forms that have strike-throughs or whiteout marks. One huge reason that we do not permit this is because we've come across fraudulent activity from departments where they go to the mayor with their totals and then they decide, well, you know what, I don't like this person. I'm going to go and I'm going to white out a couple of the members so they don't receive service credit. It's harsh and it seems really harsh, but we're doing it to protect your members and we're doing it to protect you as a department. So if we have a form that has strike-throughs or whiteout marks, we will actually ask you to resubmit it with a fresh, clean copy. Keep in mind that this form, along with the other forms we're going to go over, have to be submitted to PERA on or before March 31st, 2023. So a lot of the times members will get a signature on March 31st and then they'll mail it out. As long as there is a date stamp of March 31st, 2023, then this is something we can definitely accept from the department. So just as an FYI. The next form that we're going to go over speaks to the annual reporting form that we just went over. So on that first form, on the annual reporting form, like I mentioned, we're asking for you to report your new members, your current active non-retired members, and your retired members. Each type of member has their own qualification record form, so there are separate forms. Prior to 2018, there was just one form, but because we were having such a hard time unsuspending reports, we kind of broke it down so that way we know who are new members, who we need member enrollment forms from. So that is why we have separated each qualification record form. If we were to look deeper into each form, and it kind of will be repetitive, the first section of each form is going to require you to submit the name of your volunteer fire department, your PERA VFD number, and what county you are coming from. Keep in mind that each form that we're going over today will have instructions at the top. So it'll just kind of be some reminders as far as, please print or type in dark ink. that the form does have to be submitted to PERA by March 31st of 2023, as well as in our Rio portal. The hard copy report can be mailed, it can be faxed or emailed to PERA. And then as a reminder, again, we will not accept any forms with strike-throughs or correction tape or fluid. And then one common thing that we usually get is departments send us the only copy that they have of the report. And we want you to keep these reports on hand in case you ever need them in the future. So please remember to just send us copies of these forms. So just as an FYI. Section 2, this is where we want to know more about each individual volunteer firefighter of your department. So we are going to first off want to know their social security number. If you already have a PERA VFD number for them, so each individual member will have a PERA, their own PERA ID. If you have that, you can put that in replacement of a social security number. If just in case if the member doesn't want to share their social security number. They can always come into one of our PERA offices and we can validate their social security card and their number. But regardless, we will always need a social security number for each member. We come across this all the time where members just don't want to participate or they don't want to share their social security number. And unfortunately, they won't be part of our system, so we will never be able to track their service. So if you ever have a member that you come across that is giving you kind of a little bit of a hard time about it, you'll just want to remind them that they won't be in our system and they won't be an actual PERA member. We're also going to want to know their full name. So for example, if you have Jonathan Martinez, all of you know him as Johnny Martinez, we're also going to want to know their mailing address, so that way when we put them in our Rio system, we have the most current mailing address for them on file in case we ever need to reach out to them. We're also going to want to know their date of birth, so month, date, and year. This is something that is often incorrect, so you'll just want to verify with your members that you have all of their correct information, particularly their social security number and their date of birth. The final thing we're going to want to know about each member is, did they meet service credit eligibility requirements? So it's as easy as just checking yes or no. As an FYI, we do get forms sometimes where this section is blank. And to us, this means that they're not receiving service credit. So if you want to make sure that each member is getting service, you'll definitely want to make sure that you're selecting yes or no for that member. And just a reminder, our little red arrow, checking yes or no. Section 3, we're just going to want a signature either from the chief or an authorized person. We get it. You all are super busy with calls on a daily basis. And so if there's ever a time where the chief isn't in the department, whether they're sick or they're on a call, as long as the chief authorizes someone to sign on their behalf, that is something that they can include on this form. So we'll just need a signature, a title of that person, and then the date. So oftentimes it's usually the secretary or it's a deputy chief that signs off on this form. Some things to remember, again, kind of repetitive. Please no strike-throughs or whiteout marks on this form. We will not accept them. We also need this form, each qualification record form for each type of member submitted to PERA along with the other required documents on or before March 31st, 2023. So just some reminders for you. The next form that we're going to go over is the golden ticket for each member. This is known as the member enrollment form VF form. So when I say golden ticket, if we do not have a form for this for each member, they are not considered an actual PERA member in our system. So we need this. So oftentimes you'll submit your report, you'll get a suspended report. The number one reason being is because we do not have a form on file for a member. So don't be surprised if we ever do reach out to you for this form. All we need is basic information on the form. So section 1 is basic demographic information about the member, whether it's a social security number or PERA ID, their name, gender, phone number, email address, so that we ever need to reach out to them. We'll also need their mailing address, their date of birth, and then like I mentioned, they might also be a member with us already, an active, general employee. So we'll want to let us know. And then we'll also want to know their marital status, so whether they're married, divorced, with, or never been married. Section 2, we're going to want the information for the spouse's name if they are married. So we'll also need the spouse's social security number as well as the spouse's date of birth. In section 3, this is just where the member is signing off on all of the information that they've included in sections 1 and 2. So we'll just need a signature and a date from this member. And then section 4 is for the chief to sign off that everything is accurate and that they are indeed a VF member. We're going to need from the chief the name of the department, the VFD number, the start date for the member, the department's email address, phone number, the chief's printed name, and then a signature from the chief as well as a dated, the date included. The most important thing we can ask from the department to make sure that is on the form is the member's start date. So a lot of the times, like I mentioned, we have thousands of members out there who are missing service credit. A lot of the times they'll come to us and they'll say, I've been with the department since 2001, but on our side, we're only seeing that they were reported in 2005. So there's, those years missing. The first thing we'll do when we're conducting an audit is we'll go to the member's account, we'll look at their member enrollment form, and we'll look for the start date. So again, if we do not have a start date, or we have a start date that, this member did indeed start in 2005, this is something that we could come back and let the member know that we do have a form from 2005 and not from 2001, from which they stated. So it protects the member, and it protects the department, and it protects the chief. So we'll definitely need you to just verify that all of that information, particularly the start date, is included on the form. Some things to remember on the top of each member enrollment form, again, there is going to be instructions. And included in the instructions is that we will need a copy of the member's social security card as well as their driver's license if they already have it done so. So keep in mind that if they've already filled out this form once before, they do not need to do it every year thereafter. As long as we have one form from them for the department, then they are good to go, as well as a copy of their social security card and driver's license. Again, a huge thing to remember, please do not forget to include the member's start date, as it's very important that we have this information. And then again, you're going to want to include this member enrollment form with all of the required documentation on or before March 31st of 2023. If you have a member who started in January, please feel free to send in their form ahead of time at that time, as it'll help relieve the department of having a suspended report come reporting time. So you can send these as the members are coming in, even after March of the year. So some things to keep in mind. Another golden ticket for the department is known as a contact information form. This is required from each department on an annual basis. And it really gives you the ticket to have real access for the electronic reporting process. So if we do not have this form, we usually will reach out to you, whether you're a new chief or reporter, and we will obtain this form in order to provide you access for the electronic reporting portal known as REO. So very important for you all to submit. Easy information, again, it's kind of repetitive. Section 1, we're going to need all of the current department's information. Again, VFD number, the name, mailing address, phone number, etc., for us to contact. Section 2, we're going to want to know who the chief is at the time. So first and last name, date, time, phone number, as well as an email address in case we ever have to reach out to you as the chief. Section 3, you may have a reporter or a secretary or a deputy chief that serves in this capacity. We're going to want to know who this person is, their phone number, and their email address, again, if we have to contact. Section 4, we did leave a section because oftentimes, again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of turnover, and there may be more of a consistent alternate person that we can contact. So this could be a county fire marshal, it could be an EMS coordinator, someone that we can contact if, like I said, there's turnover amongst the department. It's someone that we can reach out to if we have any questions. Section 5, again, the chief, we're asking for your autograph a lot of times with our paperwork. We are going to want your signature as well as the date to confirm that everything is correct as the best from your knowledge. So another signature for you. Some tools that we have to kind of guide you through the hard copy reporting process. We do have a checklist that is included on our website. And it kind of just helps you go step by step amongst the forms and just some reminders again of what is acceptable and not acceptable. So this is just another resource that we have created for you all to kind of help you with the reporting process. And that concludes our hard copy reporting process. So we're going to, because this is a recording, we are going to ask you to hold your questions towards the end. So make sure that you're writing notes down if you have some questions on the hard copy reporting process. Like I mentioned at the beginning, because of statutory requirements, you are required to submit not only the hard copy information, but you also have to submit an electronic copy. The electronic reporting process is done in PERA's self-service website known as RIO. So like I mentioned, we will need a contact information form from each department on an annual basis to be able to grant you access into the RIO reporting portal. So this is something that you do have to provide to PERA ahead of time, or you can wait prior to March 31st and then get into the reporting process or to the reporting portal before March 31st. So just as long as you're contacting us before March 31st, this is stuff that we can get done within minutes to get you access into RIO. Like I mentioned at the beginning, my colleague Christina put together a wonderful reporting guide that will take you step by step for the electronic reporting process. It does start on page 8, so that is something that we definitely want to direct you to, so that way you can go through step by step of the RIO reporting process. Before we actually I'll show you towards the end where you can find this guide that, like I mentioned, is kind of the holy grail of the hard copy and electronic reporting process. Some things to remember that come up throughout the year that we find might be helpful and might pertain to you all is that we are aware that some departments throughout the state have their own internal policies. In particular, we hear a lot that departments don't consider first-year members as active members. So they are in a probationary period. So a lot of the times members will come to us if they're missing service credit, or they just want an audit on their account and they'll say, well, hey, I started in 2011, why didn't I get service? What will usually happen, the case being, is that the department had a probationary period. So if that is the case for you, for your department, on our side, there's nothing that we can do as far as adjusting that service credit. We'll usually go to you as the chief or the secretary and ask, and then you'll confirm with us that they were a probationary member. So all we ask is that you are transparent with these members, so that way on our end, we know the case of what's going on, and that you can talk to them and remind them that they were probationary members. So just keep that in mind. Another thing that comes up a lot, and we have departments who are still who still have suspended reports from 2017, and we definitely don't want this to be you. Like I mentioned, you are required to submit not only a report in a hard copy format, but also in an electronic format. When you are going into RIO and you are posting these reports electronically, ask that you check on your report the days after. So as early as the next day, you will see if your report is in an accepted status, a suspended status, an added status, or a posted status. The only time that the report has gone through successfully is with a status message of posted. If there is anything besides posted, it means that the report is suspended. So the number one reason being that it is in a suspended status, again, going back, is that we do not have a member enrollment form for some of your members. And that could be whether they're new members or you just forgot to send their form with the documentation. So don't be surprised if we do come to you asking for this information, as that's the only way that we will be able to unsuspend the report. Please also keep in mind that this means that no one will receive service credit until it is in a posted status. So it could take even just one suspended member that will, prohibit other members of getting service credit. So we don't want you to be those departments that still have reports from 2017. We definitely encourage you, even as early as today, to reach out to us and we can take a look at your account and let you know if you have any suspended reports or if you all are just good to go and there's nothing else needed. Another thing to keep in mind, as we mentioned at the beginning of the seminar, we do have a qualification record form for retired members. So the way that the statute reads is that retired members cannot receive service credit going forward. Once they are receiving a benefit, they cannot move, for example, from a 10-year retirement to a 25-year retirement. There has been talks that this may change in the future. So to kind of help our retired members out, we have included a qualification record form on file so that way you as the chief and as the department can report this retired member as being active. And if ever the statutes change and they have a yes for service credit, we can go back and adjust for them to get a higher benefit. But for right now, the way that the statute reads, if you have retired members, they are not allowed to earn additional service credit, but they can still volunteer. So something to keep in mind. Another thing that's a little bit tricky and unfortunate that we come across a lot of the times is that as a retiree, if they pass, their surviving spouse or dependent child will be paid 2/3 of the amount of pension that the retired member was receiving at the time of their death. The pension, keep in mind, to the surviving spouse does terminate upon either remarriage or death. And then the pension to a dependent child does stop when they reach the age of 18 or death. Unfortunately, we come across this all the time where you all know there is a gap between the 10-year retirement plan marker to the 25-year retirement marker. So we have members all the time who are over that 10-year marker and they're still trying to get to the 25-year marker. Unfortunately, if that member was to ever pass, there is not a benefit to a surviving spouse or a dependent child. They have to be a retired member. So unfortunately, a member has to make that decision if they are at that 10-year marker or even over the 10-year marker, whether they want to retire under the 10-year plan or they want to keep going to that 25-year retirement plan. And we get it, life happens, and unfortunately, people pass. And so we definitely encourage you to educate this to your members because unfortunately, a lot of the times get members or their family members coming to say, my husband just passed, is there a benefit for me? And again, if they were not retired receiving a benefit, there's nothing that they can benefit from unless they were a retired member. So something to keep in mind. Another thing to remember is that you have to submit a PERA member enrollment form for each member along with a copy of their social security card and driver's license. So I know we're kind of beating the head on the nail on this, but this is probably the most popular item that we come across, especially when it comes to suspended reports. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you're sending in these forms. And like I mentioned, it doesn't have to be during reporting periods that you can send these forms. You can send these year-round, and that's even better for us. So that way you can, you don't have to come across any suspended Another thing that we cannot stress enough to you as a chief or a reporter or deputy chief, etc., is that we want you to be transparent with your volunteer firefighters. If they are not meeting qualifications throughout the year, so again, that's 50%, they have to meet 50% of fire drills, 50% of business meetings, and at least 50% of emergency response calls that they are responsible to attend. It is your responsibility to talk with them. So if you have a member who maybe has missed a couple of calls or they've missed a couple of meetings or drills, you want to get with them on the side and say, hey, you know what, you've already missed this amount of requirements. If you continue doing this, you're not going to receive service credit at the end of the year. Also, we encourage you come reporting time to get with your members and say, hey, you did a great job. You're getting a yes for this year. And maybe they didn't attend everything. Maybe it's sitting with them and saying something along the lines of, you didn't receive service credit for this year, but we definitely encourage you to do better so that we receive service credit for next year. Christina, Natalie, and myself cannot tell you how many times a day we get calls and emails and walk-ins from members where they're under the impression that they have 10 years. Some members think that they have 30 years on account. And unfortunately, when we look in their account, they maybe have 5 years, or we've even seen members that have 0 years on account. And they were just under the impression that they received service credit. So again, please be transparent with your members. We do know that it is their responsibility to monitor their service credit. So please encourage them to open an online RIO account so that way they can monitor their own service credit on an annual basis, and they're not coming years later to PERA looking and finding out that they have missing service credit. So this is just huge information for you all as chiefs and reporters. Some questions that we get a lot throughout the year is, can I work for a PERA-affiliated fire department and still be a volunteer firefighter? So the answer is yes, but your VF service credit or your service has to be non-salary. So we do know that there are departments out there who offer stipends, and usually our guidance on that is, if that is the case, please reach out to any of us at PERA or in the outreach division. What will happen is we will ask for more information to share with our legal counsel. And then at that point, they'll identify whether you are considered a salaried volunteer firefighter or a non-salaried firefighter. The way the statute reads is that you as a volunteer have to be non-salaried. So if there is a certain amount that you are receiving, if you are getting a stipend, there is a monetary cap that would consider you a salaried or a non-salaried member. So to avoid any sort of mishaps in the future, or if the state auditor or the state fire marshal's office comes and they do an audit on your department, we never want you to be caught off guard on this particular subject. So we always just want you to be safe about it. Reach out if you have questions or concerns, and we can further guide you on this topic. Going back to the stipend question, can I receive a stipend as a volunteer firefighter or a VFP chief? Again, stipends are allowed for out-of-pocket expenses. So this could be obtaining fuel to get to a fire scene. It could be for protective equipment, etc. If it is not for out-of-pocket expenses, we will then need the VF member or the department to reach out to PERA so that way we can make a decision or just provide you with more guidance. So again, this has happened in the past with departments where there was fraudulent activity going on, and you best believe it, the state auditor's office was on top of it. So we never want you to be in this situation. So again, it's better to just be safe than sorry. So if this affects your department or members, reach out to any one of us and we can get you more guidance. As always, you can contact us at PERA. We do have 2 offices, one in Santa Fe and one in Albuquerque. Each office has their own numbers, and you can find all of our contact information on any of our forms or our website. So we definitely encourage you all to give us a call or send us an email, or you can always visit us. A lot of the times, if you do come into the office, our member services representatives don't have access to the volunteer fire department accounts. So if you're coming in from any outside of these areas or just even within these areas, give us a call or an email and give us a heads up, and we can actually set up an appointment to talk with you one-on-one if you do want to come in person. And that concludes our presentation as far as forms that are required, etc. Before we take any questions, I do want to point out our website and where you can find all of our forms, our videos, etc. If you have any questions or you're not too sure where to go. So if you were to go into our main website, which is just www.nmpera.org, we do have this rotating banner that will give you a direct link to the annual reporting information. Sometimes it'll move faster and you won't see that on the rotating banner. So the easiest way, another way to find us and the annual reporting information is we do have this link as well as under members that will take you to the annual reporting guidance. If you don't remember that, you can go to our for members section and you can scroll over to where it says Volunteer Firefighter Retirement. This will take you to kind of an introductory webpage on the current requirements of members and just some information. One of the biggest things that people come to this webpage for is this information. So they want to know, when can I actually receive a benefit? So the way that the current requirements are, you have to be at least age 55 with 25 or more years of service credit to receive $250 a month, or at least age 55 with 10 or more years of service credit to receive $125 a month. If you or your members are not sure how much you have in service credit, please always reach out to us and we will provide you with that information. Just alone this week, I've had 2 VF members submit an application for VF pension. And unfortunately, they went through all of that work of getting notaries, signatures, and copies of driver's license, voided checks, just to find out that they didn't have 10 or 25 years of service credit. So again, always be transparent with your members on whether they're going to receive credit or not, because unfortunately, these members think that they have met requirements, and unfortunately, we have to give them the bad news that they have not met requirements. So just kind of some basic information for you all on this page. You will find all of our VF annual reporting guidance and forms on this webpage. Under forms, you will find all of the forms that we went over today. One form that we did not go over is the VF adjusted qualification report. So unfortunately, we do have departments who did not submit reports for 2020 or 2021. So this report just allows each member to complete and submit a report and be able to receive service credit for 2020 and 2021. The scary thing about this form is that anybody off the street could obtain this form and try to get service credit for time that they did not serve as a volunteer. So what will happen is we will receive these forms, and what outreach will do is we will reach out to each department and ask, was this person a member? Did they meet requirements? And should they be awarded a yes or a no? What helps kind of, diminish the fraudulent activity is they do have to get it notarized, and they do have to have a signature from a mayor or a chair of a county commission. Unfortunately, we know how busy our elected officials can be, and sometimes they'll just sign off on the form without doing their research. And so, like I said, as a backup, the outreach team will reach out to the department to ask if this member should be receiving service credit or not. So if you are in any of that if any of you are in this situation where you did not report for 2020 or 2021, always reach out to us and we can provide this form to you. A lot of the times, members on their own will look at their Rio account and they'll see that they're missing credit for 2020 and 2021. And they went through all of this work to get signatures, etc. And then when we do an audit of their account, we find out that the department has a suspended report. And so all we need is certain information from the department to unsuspend it, and then they'll get service credit. So always, have your members reach out to us ahead of time so that way they can avoid having to fill out paperwork that they don't have to fill out. But if you were to go back to the form section, you will find the checklist that we went over, the contact information form, the member enrollment form, the annual reporting form, and all of the qualification record forms for each individual type of member. We also have the VF reporting guide that you can find under handbooks as well. And again, this is the holy grail for the electronic and hard copy annual process. We also have a really heavy dandy VF brochure that you can share with your new members or just members in general. And it just provides them with basic information about the VF retirement program. We come across so many members on a daily basis that say that they had no idea that this program ever existed and they didn't even know that they were members. And so just for you all, again, transparency, this is something that you could provide to your members as well as they come into the department. We also have a section for volunteer firefighter retirement forms. So if you have any members who are getting ready to retire with the 10 years or 25 years, encourage them to visit our website, as we do have the application for VF pension forms, as well as a direct deposit form and a tax deduction form if they ever needed to change this information. All of our presentations for our VF retirement program are located on this separate webpage as well. It's showing that I'm blocked because we're not allowed to watch YouTube videos from our agency. So that's why you're seeing this little connection was reset message. But if you do have access to YouTube, you will find all of our reporting videos here as well. So we do have an annual reporting guidance presentation that we put together a couple of years ago here. We also have a retirement program overview. So I always encourage chiefs and secretaries and reporters to play this or encourage your new members or just members in general to watch this. It's kind of just basically an electronic version of our VF brochure. So the more people we can educate about the program, the better and the safer it is for you as a department. We don't want people coming back and saying, well, the chief never told me or they never provided me with more information. So that is where you can find all of the VF retirement information. We do sit down monthly emails leading up to the recruiting process. We just sent out our first email on December 21st. So if you did not receive an email from us, please let us know so we can add you to our listserv as we included links to everything that we went over today. We also included contact information for myself, for Christina Gauthier, and for Natalie Padilla, so that way you're not having to play, tag with a customer service or our member services division, and you have direct contact to all of us in outreach. So that concludes our VF presentation. Again, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us, whether it's in the Outreach Bureau or PERA, and we will take care of you. Just again, thank you so much for your service. We know that it takes hours of dedication and sacrifice, so we can't thank you enough. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude the reporting, but we're going to go ahead and stay for questions and answers. I'm going to go ahead and stop.